Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, during a virtual meeting with the Democratic Socialists of America, actually revealed three crucial lessons in socialism. Shelley Luther, the Texas salon owner who was thrown in jail for reopening her business, received some big news, and the Justice Department has dropped its case against General Michael Flynn. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Friday. I hope you're having a great week. We've got a lot to cover on this show today. We're going to start with AOC because the Democratic Socialists of America had a virtual meeting, and she was one of their guests, of course. She is their poster person for this movement. And watching this meeting was just mind-numbing. But when you watch it, you figure out what they're all about and how misguided they are because they have no real grasp of history whatsoever. They have no fundamental knowledge of the economy, and they have no basic understanding of human nature. Yet they keep pushing their policies. If you listen to AOC, she makes it sound like, follow us because we are the gatekeepers to a utopia. Just let us have complete and total control. So she's talking, and she gets into 3 points that I want to bring out that are lessons or tactics of socialism. But she starts with talking about 100 years ago, the sewer socialists who were elected and cleaning up the sewers. She talked about how great they were, and here's what she said.
Ultimately, that spirit of the sewer socialists, which is where your public systems and your sewers were clean, were efficient, and where people don't have to live in destitute conditions. Although it was used as a pejorative term, that is what made duly elected democratic socialists in the history of the United States successful.
All right, so she talks about successful democratic socialists because they put in policies that allowed people not to live in destitution. Well, guess what? From the beginning of time for the United States or any country, there's always a group that lives in poverty, in destitution. And her policies actually make it harder for people to get out. Look at the major cities in America run by Democrats. They are the most poorly run cities, the ones with the worst conditions. And she talks about it as pride that these people don't live in destitution. Well, the people who live in destitution now are most likely governed by Democrat mayors, Democrat governors. That's just the facts. Just look at it. So then she talks about educating people on what they can do as democratic socialists. And here's what she says.
And actually analyze the functions of power, capital, and the organization of power and capital, and how that is kind of developing and compounding in the United States. And when we are able to use those lenses to elevate the general consciousness, then what we do every time we add a small layer, it's kind of like when you go to class or when you go to school.
So her first lesson, she talks about the power structure, how it's somehow, the current power structure is somehow wrong, somehow corrupt, and theirs is better. But people won't take that. They won't accept it right away. So you have to give it to them in layers. And so that's lesson number one, is education or indoctrination, because people won't accept this at face value because they know human nature, there's going to be some people good, some people corrupt. Her system actually leads to more consolidation of power, more corruption. We've seen it in Venezuela. We saw it in the former Soviet Union. She skips that part, and then she gets to lesson two.
We use public events. We use current events like what is just happening in developments of police brutality, in what is happening with our immigration system, where people are being corralled and kept in our immigrant detention systems and our prisons, which are creating some of the largest COVID outbreaks in the country. We use all of these events.
All right, this one's pretty straightforward. These socialists or democratic socialists, whatever she wants to call herself, they look at taking situations and hyping them up, stirring people into fear and panic and outrage, and playing off those situations to get their agenda moved forward. So it's a form of intimidation, spinning things. And we've seen it in coronavirus. People are so freaked out. The media has played this up so much that they're willing to just forget about the Constitution, forget about rights, let government take control, let government take over, and now we're seeing the fallout. That's why we have these protests going up across the country, because government has done too much. With this hype, they've tried to intimidate people to giving their rights away so that government can protect them. Here's more from AOC.
There's a lot of people saying, call for a general strike, call for a general strike. The majority of Americans don't know what a general strike is. And so our responsibility is to talk about it, expand consciousness about it, and to actually create the conditions in which working people can generate and really exercise their own power, the power that they already have.
So that's the three lessons that she points out, and it's just so apparent. Socialists can't win on the merits. They can't debate. It's a failed system. Historically, it's failed over and over again. So they have a different plan. It's to indoctrinate people on these from very early on, little layer by layer, like she said, intimidate them to think that there's no other choice but to accept more government and socialist policies. And then she calls for revolution. She wants to eradicate the current structure. And so those are the policies, the lessons to take away from today. It's indoctrinate, it's intimidate, it's eradicate. And when I was putting this segment together, I was so excited because I looked through it and I thought, oh my gosh, it's the three I's. It's indoctrinate, it's intimidate, it's eradicate. Except eradicate starts with an E. So then I thought, well, eliminate. Well, that starts with an E too. So there's no three I's. I couldn't figure it out in time for this show. But indoctrinate, intimidate, eliminate. That's socialism right there. Next, I want to talk about what's going on in Texas, because there was actually some good news for Shelley Luther, the salon owner, who reopened her business in order to pay bills. Now, if you remember from Wednesday's show, I talked about a similar situation in California. A restaurant owner opened up because she was getting eviction notices. She was going to be out on the street, not even being able to buy food.
Cafe El Dorado opening its doors today for the first time since the statewide shutdown, welcoming their customers back after over a month apart.
We either, run around in fear of getting a virus, or we're homeless. I'm going to be homeless if I don't open my business back up.
All right, so in Texas, we had a salon owner who reopened because she has employees that need to pay bills. She needs to pay bills, so she reopened. She was put before the court. The judge said she had to apologize or be thrown in jail. She ended up being thrown in jail. But then yesterday, the Texas support kicked in. They ruled, and now she's released. And here's the story from Fox News. The Texas Supreme Court on Thursday ordered the release of salon owner Shelley Luther, who was jailed for opening in violation of the state's rules, as Governor Greg Abbott issued an executive order retroactively eliminating jail time as a consequence for violating the state's coronavirus restrictions. Shortly after Abbott's announcement, the Supreme Court of Texas ordered Luther's release. She was released from jail Thursday afternoon. So Governor Abbott also displayed some common sense in this situation. When people are struggling, when businesses are being wiped out, millions are unemployed, he actually employed some common sense. And here's more from Fox News. Throwing Texans in jail who have had their businesses shut down through no fault of their own is nonsensical, and I will not allow it to happen, Abbott said in a statement. That is why I am modifying my executive orders to ensure confinement is not a punishment for violating an order. This order is retroactive to April 2nd, supersedes local orders, and if correctly applied, should free Shelley Luther. Well, good for her and good for Governor Abbott. Now I want to talk about this judge, because he's a liberal judge, and this is where power just goes crazy. Speaking to her, he told her she had three choices in this matter. One, she could apologize to the court for being selfish. Two, she could pay a fine and stay closed, or she could go to jail. Here was her response.
I have to disagree with you, sir, when you say that I'm selfish, because feeding my kids is not selfish. I have hairstylists that are going hungry. because they'd rather feed their kids. So, sir, if you think the law is more important than kids getting fed, then please go ahead with your decision, but I'm not going to shut the salon.
So it's great to see this outcome, and we need to do more of this. We need to reopen. The Labor Department just put out the next numbers on unemployment. Now it's over 33 million people have filed unemployment claims over the last 6 or 7 weeks. Over 33 million. We need to get people back to work. We understand the situation. We understand social distancing. We understand hygiene. If people are uncomfortable going out, then remain quarantined. Self-isolate. Stay at home, follow your own self-imposed lockdown and stay away from people. But other people, if they want to, need to reopen businesses, need to be able to go out and allow Americans to make decisions for themselves. It's absolutely crazy. So next I want to talk about Michael Flynn. But first, if you're loving the show, please subscribe and please hit that bell so you'll be notified. We're making our push for 100,000 subscribers by Election Day. 100K by Election Day, and we can do it with your help. So please spread the word. In addition, I'm going to be on Newsmax TV tomorrow morning for the Saturday Report at 9:30 Central Daylight Time. So please tune in for that. And then put another cup of coffee on at 11 a.m. We're going to be here with a Saturday live stream. Special guest is Dan Gaynor from the Media Research Center. We're going to be talking about media bias with coronavirus, with politics, you name it, taking your questions in the chat, or go to my Facebook page and put your questions there. You'll see the post. I'll put a link in the description. It's going to be a great show, so tune in for that. So next we're going to talk about Michael Flynn, because there's big news. He was President Trump's first national security advisor, and he was the first casualty in the Mueller investigation on Russia collusion, the biggest hoax that I think the government has ever done. Well, now there was big news from Michael Flynn because the Justice Department announced yesterday that it was dropping its case against him. And here's the report. The Justice Department on Thursday dropped its criminal case against President Trump's first national security advisor, Michael Flynn, a shocking reversal in one of the most high-profile cases brought by special counsel Robert Mueller. Flynn pleaded guilty in late 2017 to lying to the FBI about his conversations with the Russian ambassador to the U.S. So the FBI basically entrapped Flynn into lying about something unrelated to the case. And the reason that the DOJ came back yesterday and dropped its case against Flynn is because new evidence came out that showed that the FBI knew that Michael Flynn was not involved in Russia collusion. There was no evidence against him on Russia collusion, but they went ahead and had a meeting anyway so they could try to get him on something else. Documents released last week raised questions about the government's case against him. Among the revelations were documents showing the FBI had no evidence Flynn had committed wrongdoing. Despite the lack of evidence, FBI officials went ahead with interviewing Flynn at the White House in January 2017. Flynn's statements during that meeting were the basis for his prosecution, but the Justice Department said Thursday in a court filing that there was no basis to conduct the interview. The Justice Department said the interview was untethered, unjustified, and conducted without any legitimate investigative basis. So that's great news for Flynn, and it really brings to light the corruption in the Obama administration, the Obama Justice Department, and that's where the real investigation needs to go. They were spying on American citizens. They were doing actions based on an opposition research political document. These are abuses of power in the Obama administration. That's what really needs to be investigated. So folks, that leads us to Friday and our segment, Do You Have a Relaxed Brain?
I got what you call a relaxed brain.
All right, we're going to start with Michael Flynn because it's a great segue. We have actor Chris Maloney, who was on Law & Order SVU. The ruling comes out about the DOJ dropping its case against Michael Flynn, and Maloney tweets this. He writes, Justice Department moves to drop case against Michael Flynn, former Trump advisor who pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. We take another step closer to corrupt authoritarian rule. All right, that's what he tweets. So let's put this in the context of the here and now, okay? We've got coronavirus running amok. We've got state governments imposing draconian shutdown rules, stay-at-home orders to the point where people are freaking out. 33 million people have lost their jobs because governments have run amok. And he's picking the Flynn case to talk about authoritarian rule. Open your eyes, folks. Look what's going on around the country. It's absolutely nuts. So then we have the San Antonio City Council, okay? These are the people that voted Chick-fil-A out of the city's airport because they didn't like their policies. They didn't like their Christian policies of what they do, so they voted them out. All right, this is a left-wing city council that spends more time on social issues than actually fixing streets and potholes and things like that. So guess what? They're at it again. This time, they're talking about the Chinese virus, the Wuhan virus, and labeling that as hate speech. That's what's going on here. So talk show host Joe Pagliarulo, he tweeted this in response to this upcoming San Antonio City Council resolution. The San Antonio City Council will resolve that if you call coronavirus the Chinese virus or Kung Fu virus, it's hate speech, and authorities will be sent to you to investigate you. Viruses have always been named for a location. This is a Gestapo or Soviet move. You okay with this? So then in response to that tweet, Senator Cruz got on and he said this is nuts. San Antonio City Council behaving like a lefty college faculty lounge, triggered by Chick-fil-A and the words Wuhan virus. If they want to investigate someone, start with the New York Times and CNN, who both repeatedly and rightly refer to it as the Chinese coronavirus. Hashtag no speech police. And so finally, I want to put this cartoon up. This is from David Horsey, who does a lot for the Seattle Times. This is about the Me Too movement, and it just shows the hypocrisy of the left. So check this out. This really sums up the Me Too movement there. It's all these endorsements from Joe Biden. Me too, me too, me too. A lot different than back in the Brett Kavanaugh days. A lot different indeed. So folks, that's our show for today. Please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell so we can hit 100K by Election Day. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified. And here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-minute news hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.